Greetings and welcome back to the Center for Applied Theology, where we will be discussing the question of how it is we best keep our children in love with God as they navigate difficult years and difficult times. And so I'm going to open up with Father Timothy and put that question to him, ask him if he has any initial thoughts to get us started. Father Timothy.
That's a very difficult question, and again I'm going to ask you to press the subscribe button if you like us talking about these really difficult and what I call the hot potato topics. And particularly maybe we should both explain what our credentials are in terms of talking about young people. I'm a father of 4 now grown-up children, married now for 25 years. Perhaps, Father, you could, what's your credentials for talking on this topic?
Well, I think in terms of years of marriage, we're almost equal. In terms of children, I may make you look like an amateur insofar as I have twice the number. I have 8 children, and they range in age from 23 down to 7. So I think between us have a lot of experience of what it is to raise children in the faith and to take on these kinds of challenges. And I think if I was to be so bold as to speak for both of us, we sympathize with the question.
Absolutely sympathize, and I'm not speaking necessarily from a position of success either, because we all, I think, as parents in the faith, deal and struggle with these very difficult questions. I always remember one of probably the most important books given to me as a young parent was a book called The Good Enough Parent. Being good enough is always the starting point, but I think thinking about this question over the last week or so has been a challenge for me in terms of thinking that what we tend to want to try and do as parents is to bring our children up as Christians, which is a very laudable thing to do. But I think what we really ought to try and do is bring our children up and to be Christians, for us to be Christians, and to bring our children up to be free human beings. And by free human beings, I mean able to make free choices. It's very intrinsic to Orthodox Christianity, our anthropology or our understanding of personhood, that we are free human beings. Our idea of ourselves, our idea of our relationship with God is that we are able to make free decisions, that we are not driven by our passions or by our intuitions or by habits. So for our children to grow up knowing that Christianity, Orthodox Christianity, is there, and to know the tradition and to understand the tradition for what it is and for all its difficulties and all of its joys, but to be free to choose it.
I think the whole idea of choice is in itself an act of faith, in the sense that, if I think of my children leaving the house, going off to university, or engaging with any sort of social challenge on their own, that is, they're not coming back to the house at the end of the day for the kind of reinforcement they would have had when they were 8 or 9 years old. They're faced by choice all the time. And it's an act of faith on the part of the parent that we have been able to give them the equipment they need to make a good choice, but even where we have not, that God remains present with them in any case. In other words, that it will be okay. And I think that should be of great comfort to parents, in the sense that they will probably mess up. I know I have. But as there's that wonderful quote that so many people already know from Blessed Julian of Norwich, who said, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. If love is at the center of our relationship with our child, and faith is what guides us through that loving relationship, faith in God, faith that God is present both with us and with the child, then we can also depend on the fact that whatever happens with respect to our choices, all shall be well.
There's incredible pressure, and I'm not going to be that sort of person that says these days, but to me it seems that there is an incredible pressure to be somebody or to make the right decision, whether you're a child or whether you're a parent. And the one thing that we can communicate to our families is that God loves us and we love our children regardless of whether they make the right decision or the wrong decision. And almost trying to be able to show people that there is no right or wrong decision. I have so many people come to me asking me, I've got to make this decision. Which is the right one? Am I going to marry this person? Am I going to choose this job? Am I going to buy this house? What is God's will in all of this? And I find myself saying, God's will is not for you to decide this. God's will is for you to make a decision and to live with the consequences of your decision and to know that he loves you. And the same is true as a father, as a parent, is you are going to make good decisions, suboptimal decisions, and really lousy decisions as a teenager, as a child growing up, and as a young adult, and as an older adult. You're still going to make all those decisions. But I love you, and I will support you in those decisions, even if I disagree vociferously with those decisions.
In that respect,
I will continue to love you.
Yeah, in that respect, I mean, you're really reminding me of the story of the prodigal son. I mean, there is nothing more moving than that moment when the prodigal son realizes he has blown everything, that he is now working with pigs, which of course would have been supremely humiliating and contrary to his inherited tradition. Yet he goes home to the father, and the father only embraces him. And, you know, I was blessed in my own home growing up to have a father not dissimilar to that depicted in the story. And in that respect, if our children know that they can go out and make the choices they make and return to a father or a mother that is able to just embrace them, that doesn't mean affirmation of everything. There's no point in the prodigal son story where the father says, oh, all that stuff you did, that's all okay. No, he says, you're okay.
Yeah.
And I love you. And here's my embrace. You know, I celebrate your return. On that basis, I think it gives us immense freedom to fail. But it's a failure in love and in faith, in the sense that the context is love, the context is faith, because the wrong decisions then become essentially sanctified. They're so surrounded by those two elements, those divine elements, that they get transfigured or transformed.
I'll come back to that notion of failure, but also when we're with our children, this notion of freedom is really important, because they are under enormous pressure from so many different angles, and they are overwhelmed now with information from all different parts of the social media. And I think our job is to help them to be free from that, in the sense that for us to help them to understand that they don't need to have to respond to all of this, that they don't need to feel that they have to be validated by all of this information, that they can help them to decide what information they should and could listen to and what is rubbish. So helping them to make those freedoms, these are the things that are intrinsic to Christianity. For us to be free from our own passions, we need to be able to choose to eat or not eat, to choose to do this or not to do that. It's about becoming human. It's to be able to choose this or not choose this. So when we're communicating our faith to children, it's about helping them to become free human beings, to be able to choose this rather than have to do this because they're driven to it by social media or by their friendships or by the need to be loved or by habit or by addiction.
Mm.
And if we can do that. And to this notion of failure, every Lent we come to the Sunday of forgiveness, and the most powerful hierarch in the church will kneel down and ask forgiveness of the lowest member of the community.
Mm.
And everyone will prostrate themselves in front of one another and ask forgiveness. And there's nothing more powerful, I think, also you will find of for a priest and a father to bow down before their 2-year-old child and ask forgiveness of that child. And we can't always get it right as parents. We will get it wrong, and children construct us as heroes, whether we like it or not. That's part of their growing up, is that we are invincible heroes. And the worst thing that happens in a child's life is for them to realize that we're not infallible and we're not heroes. But if we're not big enough to apologize to them and say we're sorry for failing them, and explaining to them that we will continue failing them because that's what humans do, if we're not big enough to apologize to them and be that human to them, they will resent that. I've spoken to very many young people of faith and not of no faith who have expressed resentment towards their parents because they failed to be the unending hero, but were oblivious to the failure.
Yeah, that's so pivotal, it seems to me, because it gets us into the question of hypocrisy, right? When you fail to realize your own failure as the hero figure and acknowledge it, then you leave yourself open to the accusation of hypocrisy. And it seems to me that there's nothing a young person hates more than hypocrisy. You know, I won't repeat the full phrase reiterated across The Catcher in the Rye, but Holden Caulfield's character is constantly calling people phony.
Yep.
And I suppose that's always been a terror of my own, because I know my failings, and I would be loath to think that my children might look at me and say, oh, he preached this, but he never did it himself. No, I didn't do it myself, because I'm human. But the joy that can be had when it is done, whatever that is, that virtue is that we're looking toward, it's a beautiful thing. And I just want my children to know that. And they'll never know it if I fail to acknowledge the fact that I myself have fallen down in its face.
And that's why that rite of forgiveness in Lent is unmissable for a family, because it gives the opportunity for everyone to approach each other and say, I will fail you. I have failed you, because there is no one who does not sin except Christ himself. The only truly reliable human being is Christ. And a child growing up will always encounter human beings that are unreliable and will fail them. And they're always looking for the reliable hero, for someone who is always going to be there for them. And as adults, as parents, we are going to fail them, and we will cause them great grief and we will do that. But if we can say to them, I'm sorry, it is who I am, I will not live up to your expectations, but I'm asking you for forgiveness, in the same way as you will ask forgiveness for the times that you've left your bedroom messy and stuff like that, and all the things that I've asked you to do you haven't done, etc. But we're equals before God.
Do you think a way of summing up then would be to identify maybe a hierarchy of tools, if it can be as base as that, but to talk about love above all, the love of God, seeking to manifest the love of God in your home as a parent, faith, seeking to live out a life of faith, and therefore being able to accept choices even when they may appear to be perhaps not the best, and ultimately authenticity. Authenticity in the sense of being able to look inside oneself, acknowledge one's own weaknesses and share those with the children, so that they recognize that, yes, mom and dad, well, they're not perfect, but they also understand that, and together will continue to pursue the object of faith in the context of love. So it's sort of a reciprocal kind of hierarchy or compilation of tools.
Yeah, in a way, it's kind of, don't try and make Christianity try and happen in your household.
Mm,
You know, be a Christian,
yeah.
and your children will become Christians in their own way at their own time. You know, your teenagers will rebel. If you're lucky, they'll rebel in front of you, in your face, and in safety.
Mm,
But they will form their identity over and against you, and that's an important part of their growing up. And they will sulk, and they will not want to communicate with you, etc. But if you remain that humble Christian, at some point in their life, they will draw on the resource of the faith that you have given them, and the resource of the faith and the traditions of the church. They will draw on that, and that will be their resource in their time.
There's a story, and I know I will misquote it, but forgive me for putting my own sort of spin on it. The essence will be there, and that is just to say, I know a priest who went through a period, he grew up nominally Orthodox or culturally Orthodox, but in his teenage years started to explore Buddhism. And he met a well-known hierarch in the Orthodox Church who said, wonderful, there are many interesting facets to Buddhism. Just remember when you do come home that it will have all, what you discover there will have all been here in the first place. Yes. And it was like an allowance that, yes, this person will go out on his pilgrimage, but that pilgrimage will ultimately lead him home. There was faith there, and ultimately the pilgrimage revealed in the end that what he was looking for, he already had. What was the end of the story? He's a priest today.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Father, and I hope this conversation will have helped some people, and hopefully that it will also provoke some more questions. And if anyone wants us to discuss this topic in more detail, or parts of this topic in more detail, or suggest to us any other topics, then please let us know, and we'll discuss them.
Thank you very much.